Hi guys, welcome to Creatively Me with Bree. You guessed it, I'm Bree, and today we are working on Procreate and we are making a seamless repeating pattern. So as you can see, I have a sketch of the designs that I plan to make. I often resist making the sketch. Don't be like me, make the sketch. I always regret not making a sketch ahead of time. And as you can see, I have reference right now turned on. I'm going to turn my reference back on. So this actually is my own design in the reference, but I wanted you guys to be able to see what we were going after. I do make some slight changes and adjustments on the design throughout the process, but overall it is the same as what you're seeing as the reference point. And as you can see, I have my limited palette right here. And so what I decided to do was make each element individually. This is the charcoal options that come with Procreate. So the brushes that I'm using today are all already in Procreate. So obviously you can use whatever brushes or brush settings work best for you and your style. I like a combination of textured brushes and solid flat brushes without texture. I just like the dynamic quality that it brings to the illustrations. As you can see, I very quickly sped up this part so you didn't have to watch me build in texture to the entire snail shell. So if you're using a solid brush that has no texture, filling in the elements will be obviously much quicker. Again, this is just a personal preference. Whatever fits your style, I think is wonderful. All right, and next I am going to pick one of the lighter greens in my color palette. And I'm going to make the slug part of the body of the snail. Again, you will see this sped up in just a moment here because I didn't want to bore you guys while I filled it in with texture. But yeah, I had a really fun time with this creation. It's been a while since I've done art. I've been focusing on some other areas of my life, so I am just getting back into it, and I am a bit rusty, and you'll probably notice that throughout this video. I think it's really important that when we are creating that we pick stuff that we are interested in, that we are passionate about, but also challenges us. So oddly enough, I've never made a snail, so I decided, why not? Why not now? In a moment, what you're going to see is I am going to put on Alpha Lock. Then I'm going to grab the darker green. It's the mid green, and I'm going to choose the burnt brush in the charcoal selection for brushes on Procreate. Again, this is what comes with Procreate, so you should have it accessible to you. And again, I'm just creating just a little bit of dynamic texture and shadow to make this snail have just more interest in how it appears. I just set Alpha Lock on the shell next, and I'm going to go back to the very light green, go back up to my 4B compressed brush, and here I am creating the design in the shell. And I totally get my shell is, well, it's not realistic, but I wasn't going for realistic. I'm going for whimsical and fun. And since it's spring, floral just felt like the right subject matter to incorporate into the shell as well as other elements throughout this piece. I'm realizing I probably should have sped this part up, but, live and you learn. Now I'm going to add pink dots. Why? I don't know. It just felt like it needed a little bit of complementary color to it. It needed something, a little pizzazz. So here it is. Let me know in the comments what you think. So now that I have completed my first snail, I'm going to go on to the second design of the snail. I know, surprise, surprise. I'm full of those. Now, I have to say this is probably my favorite snail that I drew. I can't explain it, but there's something about the way that they carry themselves that just screams attitude. So again, I go back to my 4B compressed charcoal pencil brush. There's the word, brush. And I'm just going to trace along the sketch, you know, the thing that I said that you shouldn't resist doing like I do, and you should do it because, well, it helps you in the long run. And then you are going to see me very quickly, hopefully, once I speed up the video, color this in. Oh, there it is. Fun. And once I get, you know, somewhat of a good shape going, I am now going to go ahead and pick, I did not add this to my palette until obviously later, as you're seeing now. I just needed a darker salmon color. So I ended up adding it just so I could create just a little bit more, again, visual contrast in the snail shell. And then once I have my odd, funky color, I am going to add dots because, again, dots are sort of magic for this fun and whimsical piece. I don't know why, just polka dots. Polka dots are the thing for me right now. Just go with it. So next you'll see that I am picking some very, very pale green. Kind of looks a little like neon yellow. It's green, I promise. And I don't know, something about that color. For me, it reminds me of the 70s. Not a bad thing, just it reminds me of the 70s. I'm going to put on the Alpha Lock, and I'm going to grab a slightly more olive green, and I'm going to use the Burnt Tree brush in the charcoal brush selection in the library. And just like the other snail, I am just creating that under shadow. And I am, yes, that's right, creating more dots for this piece. It's just a design thing, okay? And next, I will be putting those little dealy boppers up on the head. Did you know they're actually called tentacles? I was thinking more antennas, but no, they're called tentacles. And that, yep, eyeballs are on the end of that thing, so that's cool. Which seems probably counterintuitive considering that I just drew an eyeball, well, an eyelid, on the body. Just go with it, okay? It's cuter this way. It's way cuter. And now I'm pretty much done. I'm just fixing up a few minor details. I highly recommend, I'm still getting better about this. Similar to the sketches, I'm really not great about labeling all of my layers. So what you don't see me edit out is me struggling to correctly label my my snails and my designs. So please remember to do that. It really does help make it cleaner, easier to read, easier to find what layers you need. It really will help you in the long run. Don't be like me. Yeah, and now I'm drawing the final snail of my design. That's pretty much all I have to say on this until the next cool thing happens. In a second here, I think I'm actually going to speed this up so you don't have to watch me fill it in. Yeah, there it is. Look at us go. So fast. Again, I'm sticking in my color palette, which I created ahead of time. Only had a few moments where I had to, you know, add some colors I forgot I needed. As you saw, I put on Alpha Lock on the shell so that I could draw on the shell without worrying about my design going off of the shell in any way. So yeah, and now I'm just drawing, you know, like a vine to stand in as the shell shape. And yep, dots. I had to add the dots. That was not in the original design. I like the dots. It's cute. Next, I will be doing the body. And as you can see, I didn't label that layer like I was saying. So again, make sure you're labeling everything. It literally will save you in the end. But like I said, I'm rusty, so, you know, live and you learn. I'm a human being who, you know, isn't perfect. It happens. Also, one thing that I have to say, when you are making drawing strokes, rather on paper or on Procreate, try really hard. If you want good, consistent line work, if you can, try really hard not to lift up your pen or your stylus. Also, especially when working digitally, working from up to down or top to bottom, moving towards yourself will give you more control. I have found that might be different for you, but I figure if that helps someone, great. So I thought I would just share that little tidbit. Like the other designs, I am creating the little shadow underneath using the burnt brush in the charcoal brush. And I decided that I wanted to fill in the, I was going to call them antennas, no, the tentacles with this darker color just to stand out a bit more. And I thought that was a better design choice. And now you'll see me put the cute little face on. This one also, I mean, I like all three of the designs, but honestly, this one's probably my second favorite. It's so happy. I want to feel that joy inside of me all the time. And in a moment here, I'm just being nitpicky. No one's probably going to notice these things up close, but I notice them, and that's all that matters. So now that I am done with the final snail, I will be heading off to do the other, as you can see, I'm grouping them here, just so that way I have them all together, easier to move around and also identify them. So now I'm going to move on to other elements. Next will be the leaves or the floral elements. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll try my best to entertain you. Leaf 1. Look at me labeling there. I was really proud of myself. By the midpoint of this project, I was really, really good about labeling because I was getting very tired of having to figure out what was happening in my life. Also, I recognize that the sound quality on this video may not be, I don't know, great, sort of subpar, slightly echoey. I'll fix that. Again, I have not done art videos in a long time. And so, you know, making adjustments. Now I'm on to the second leaf, and I have labeled it as such, like I suggested. Look at me not being a hypocrite. And me struggling to get the right color. And finally, take off. Look at that. And thankfully, I sped this up so that you didn't have to, wait forever for me to do this. But again, this is why I think it's so critical and important that we do the sketching, because then you know exactly what you are intending to do. If you don't sketch out your designs, you'd be surprised how long designing can actually take. And also figuring out what palette you want to use as well. For a long time, I just wanted to sort of pick colors as I went. I would run into a couple issues though. One is that I felt like there was no color scheme per se. I felt like it was a little chaotic. I also found that I tend to muddy colors. I tend to pick colors that are more muted and muddy instinctively. That's probably something to do with my personality and trauma, not wanting to stand out. So in order to avoid doing that to my artwork, I have found that it is also really helpful to pick a saturated and bright and, fun palette ahead of time so that I can test out how muddy or saturated the colors can look, or desaturated. Like I said, I choose to use the word muddy just because I do find that me personally, at least in my art selection, I do tend to choose very muted and diluted colors that also inhabit a lot of gray. So as you can see, I am moving on to another floral element. This one is simple but fun, playful, if you will. And yeah, I don't have much to say on this part. It's, you guys are just watching me do my thing. Hopefully you're doing your thing. Look at that. So cute. In hindsight, I probably could have added a little more to it, but, you know, less is more sometimes. That's what I tell myself. And then now we're actually heading into the third main element. So first was the snails, then was the leaves floral design, and now we're actually doing mushrooms. I don't know, snails and mushrooms just, I felt like they had to go hand in hand. Something about them just felt like home. So here we are. Coloring it in quickly, thank goodness. And as you can see, I will be adding more dots to this design. Maybe it's that I want everything to be a mushroom. I don't know. Maybe. There might be something to that. And there I go, coloring in, keeping that texture because I like it, and creating cute little dots. And then, yeah. And then I just have one more little mushroom, and then we get to the real fun stuff, which is creating the pattern in and of itself. Mushroom 2. There we go. I feel so bad. I just have no narration here. That's exciting. Look, more dots. This again, so this is actually one of the pieces that I made a slight variation to. The reference point at the top will vary just a little bit than this. I felt like there was just a little bit too much pink in the other design, so I wanted to make sure that this piece encompassed both colors from the color palette, the bluish green and the salmony pink. So yeah, I just wanted to ensure that there was contrast and just enough dynamic difference between all of the different designs. This was a last minute ad that I did not sketch out, and I cut out a lot of videos so that you guys wouldn't have to deal with me trying to figure out exactly what I wanted that design to be. So here's me just, you know, sort of trying to get the design underway, and I like what I came up with. Again, slight variation from the original reference that you're seeing in the corner there on the left-hand side. Also, now that I'm seeing it, don't be afraid to move stuff around. There's a lot of cool elements, like you just saw me use the what's the tool called? I think I want to call it the transform tool. Now I think that's like a Photoshop term, but anyways, the ability to move it around, warp it. These are all things that you can do. You can also distort it and just move it around. Sometimes initially our design we think is going to look good, but once you start adding color and just getting it down, you start to realize, you know, as you zoom in and zoom out, there are some areas that might need just slight adjustment, and that's okay. I don't know a single artist who is 100% always getting their sketches and design just right. A lot of times it does take adjustment. It takes, you know, that moving in, moving out, zooming in, zooming out to just sort of test and see what that design looks like. What looks good up close may not look good, you know, far away. So now you can see that I am getting my snails adjusted at the size and just placement that I want. Ideally, if you can, try not to adjust the sizes of your images if you can, just because as you do that, you will lose some resolution. However, since my pieces are textured, I don't get as concerned, but that doesn't mean that I don't worry about it and that I don't try my darndest to ensure that I you know, try not to resize my images. Now what you're seeing is me play a game of Tetris with my elements. Essentially, I am moving around, duplicating the pieces. For the places where there are awkward shapes, I'll show you in just a little bit how I handle that. But right now, I just want to get the main pieces nice and settled in like a puzzle. I want to make sure that I am distributing the colors as well as the shapes as, I don't want to say evenly, but just artistically set and placed around the piece. You want to have some balance in there, although asymmetry can be obviously a form of aesthetic balance, if you will. So once I have everything sort of settled where I want, I will be combining all of the layers so that all the flowers or the floral pieces will be on the same, the mushrooms will be on the same. So what you'll see in a moment is that this was a complete waste of time, but I'll explain why it's still important to do and also why I chose not to do it. So you're going to see me actually merge and flatten all of those pieces together. Typically, I wouldn't do this. However, I am on a very large document right now, which means I am limited in the amount of layers that I can have. So that is why I actually opted to flatten everything, but I will be able to access all those pieces if I need to because none of them are overlapping. If you do have elements that overlap, please make sure that you keep in a group the individual elements just in case you ever need to change their placement. I am so sorry. This is going to be really difficult for me to explain. I'll do my best. I turned on settings for snapping and magnetic. Also, if you notice, I have two groups right now where I have the flattened elements. In those flattened elements, I didn't explain earlier, but do not have any elements bleeding off the page. That is essential, at least to start. So all the elements are on the page right now. I created a secondary layer with a colored, just a flat color. I took the opacity down on that, and then I duplicated that. I put both the flattened piece and the colored piece into the same group, and then I duplicated that group. As you can see, I am moving one group down and snapping it into place, and I am moving one group up and snapping it into place. So now it definitely looks like it could be a repeating pattern. Please, please, please make sure that it is perfectly snapped. That is how it becomes a perfectly seamless pattern. I'm going to go in and delete the transparent or nearly transparent layers. And so now you can see that there are a few spots that are a little awkward and empty. I am taking the two different layers that have the pattern of the elements on them and I combine them. So it, theoretically speaking, should be a repeating pattern right now. I am, however, going to take the time to copy some of the elements and move them around so that way it doesn't look so awkward with those spaces. We want it to look as organic and natural of a pattern as possible. You'll see for a moment me just sort of zooming in, zooming out, just kind of getting a feel for where color needs to be placed, where certain elements and shapes would do best to fit. Again, another game of Tetris, essentially. If you don't like Tetris, this project may not be for you. So yeah, one thing I do want to note that I probably didn't note earlier in the video and also need to note now, the objective is to make sure that you are keeping the elements on the page. You don't want them bleeding off the page. Now, some of them are bleeding off the page, but that's only because we did the movement of the two layers in order to create the seamless pattern. Our original pattern, none of the elements bled off the page, and that's incredibly important so that way we can ensure that the pattern remains seamless. So again, just a bit more Tetris, moving stuff around, sometimes reshaping or resizing, just to get it to fit a little bit more clearly in some of these spaces. And as you can see, I'm just slightly adjusting some of these things just to make sure that everything fits nice and neat. You can start to see a lot more balance in the colors and in the shapes as well now. And again, just reminding you, as you can tell, I've been zooming in and zooming out, just trying to get a feel for what might be missing and what spaces I might not be seeing if I'm zoomed in. And I add a layer. I add, I make it the just a solid color. I lower the opacity. I am doubling again. Or not doubling, duplicating the layer, and then I'm turning on the snapping and the magnets. And now I'm dragging it from left to right and right to left, and waiting until it snaps into place. Which means if they are perfectly snapped into place, this will now be a repeating pattern. Now I am combining those two broken up layers because they were moved. And now you can see that there are some spaces that are still a little awkward with that white space. My solution though to this was, instead of trying to squish in more elements, I thought dots. I know, weird. Me and these dots. I thought dots would actually be really whimsical and fun, and just sort of create more of an environment and just more fun elements and texture to the piece. So, yep, that's just me adding more dots, making it fun. And then I duplicate it a bunch of times. So a bunch meaning 4 times. I take the original and I put it down with the other originals just in case I need to redo anything. And then I use my snapping and magnet settings to move each one to be smaller and in each corner of the quadrant. And now you can see it is a repeating pattern. I'm going to zoom in just so you guys can see that it is in fact repeating. There is no weird overlap or line showing. It's just a nice seamless pattern. I know this isn't maybe the most traditional of ways to do it. I know there are some other ways to create seamless patterns, but this one seems to make the most sense to me. So I thought I would share it. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. It has actually been really, really fun creating this and sharing it with you guys, and I really appreciate it. If you have not subscribed yet, please go do so. I would love a like on the comment if you feel so inclined, and I hope to see you guys really soon.